My name is Michelle Schwengel Regala, and I am from Wisconsin, but I live and work around Honolulu here in Hawaii. Since I was a kid, I've always been very keen on art, science, nature, this combination of looking at the world and its structures, its relationships, but wanting to look closely enough to be able to see these details. And then I often like to depict these details through art. When I was a kid, I was always drawing. Then when I went to college, I decided I needed to study science. I thought that was a more pragmatic approach, perhaps. So I studied entomology, wildlife ecology, with a conservation biology emphasis. And it happened that as a college student, one of my professors saw my drawings that were my own way of learning the structures, the anatomical structures that I needed to know for school. And he asked if I wanted to be his illustrator in his research lab. That was a great surprise, and that gave me a dual path through college in art as well as in science. So I remained a science illustrator for not only my college career, but beyond. I worked at a bunch of natural history museums around the world as a freelance artist as well as a staff illustrator. And I enjoyed so much that ability to collaborate with scientists and contribute to their research without having to run my own lab and produce the scientific questions and carry all of that execute all of that through the process. Instead, I was learning on the job through each of these different projects that I'd work on, and it still allows me to be a lifetime learner of acquiring information about the world and then sharing it. So science communication is what I ended up going to graduate school for, a graduate degree in science illustration. Let's see, then I moved to Hawaii a few years later. I've been here for 11 years, and while I thought I would stay in natural history-based fine art, I found myself moving into textiles, in part because when I became a parent, I realized I needed to work in a medium that was a little more family-friendly, and indeed textiles have served that purpose. But I still wanted to tell a science story through each of the projects that I've made. I've been able to stay on that path, and Hawaii has a fantastic realm of subjects to choose from. I'm still so inspired by everything that I see here, the interaction between native and invasive species, the interaction between humans and the environment. All of these things are continuing to provide fodder for my artistic practice. I keep seeing more ideas of what I want to explore, learn about, and then express through the art that I make. Should I talk about the project that I'm doing now? Okay. I've started to explore art residencies, and I began one at the University of Hawaii in 2015. And then I learned about a residency that takes place in a mobile setting. In this case, it's to be an artist at sea with the Schmidt Ocean Institute. They are a research organization that provides berths for scientists to go on this research vessel that travels around the world and does oceanographic research. But in the last year, they've taken a novel approach, and they've decided to bring an artist on board to basically be embedded with the science crew and then interpret what the scientists are doing during their mission through art, through whatever art the artist resident makes. In my case, I decided to put aside my science illustration background and instead apply as a fiber artist. And I'm quite satisfied with that approach that I took. I think it was not something they were expecting, but it has proven to be a way that I could make work that speaks to an audience that might not necessarily be interested in the science that I'm talking about, but people can relate to textiles. People can relate to scarves and sweaters and mittens. So on that voyage, I knit a series of data textiles that reflected that reflected the data sets that the scientists were looking at during the voyage. They were sending down equipment to learn about the qualities of the water column in that specific area, and then as the equipment came back up, they would capture water samples at various depths. So these are the types of information that I've embroidered onto these panels of knitted wool, and then now for the biennial, I've decided to take that concept, and instead of working it in a two-dimensional fashion, I'm transforming it into a three-dimensional sculpture and at a larger scale. So I had an idea for the past few years that I wanted to switch into something that was more abstract. I wanted to relax a bit of my my attention to details in a way, and I wanted to see where I could go with more abstract work. And in fact, even though this voyage was very much about very specific science, it allowed me to find a way to create something that definitely appears abstract. The work that I'm doing is on a large scale. It has intersecting lines and forms, but all of the shapes that I'm making come from these data sets. So I'm really glad that I've been able to find something that lets me work in this new capacity on a larger scale than I ever have. And it's still coming from something specific about our world. And it's coming from a perspective where these scientists are trying to figure out what's going on in our oceans. So I'm very happy to have this opportunity to make the work at this scale and know where it will be exhibited and be able to share the story of what's behind the artwork.